Finish the sentence. I'd rather be in
movies.
Songs.
My bed. Duh.
What is happening?
Man, I was very excited to do this podcast. That answer just went so many different directions. No, see, not get into that. Well, let's get into it.
I think you guys didn't get the question.
Yeah.
I did not get the question, but
I thought you guys were saying I'd rather be in the Bahamas or something.
I didn't know it was a location thing.
You'd rather be in music?
No,
what does that even mean?
Songs.
No, he was like, what did you say?
I said movies.
Yeah, so when he said movies, I was like, songs.
Well, my headspace was like, I'd rather be like, I don't know, I was just thinking like entertainment for some reason.
Okay.
And like, I was just not thinking physical location, like, I don't know. Maybe that's my dumb head right now, but
My dumb head right now.
The Rosa brain.
Okay, I'll take it. Yeah, I would really, really love to be in my bed right now. No sleep for a while now. We're on like Ramadan is almost finished, so
26?
26 night.
Yeah.
Today, 26 Rosa today.
yeah, so almost finished. But thank you guys for tuning into another episode of Strange Flavors. This is brought to you by Alif Theory. My name is FARAS.
My name is Quazir, aka Shimmer. I don't know.
My name is Amber.
What's there? All right. If you want to follow us on our social media, we are at Strange Flavors on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also email us strangeflavorspodcast@gmail.com, where you can also send us your music. So what's going on recently, guys?
Okay, so like to shift this into a more serious topic, I know it's like right early in the podcast, but we've had a lot of people in the public eye recently committing suicides and stuff. It started off with Kate Spade, and then what was the other person's name?
Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah, and then, I mean, this isn't a famous person, but it was in a very public way. Someone jumped off of the roof of Al-Haram Mosque. It's in Mecca. But yeah, I think
That's crazy.
I know.
Well, personally, like, I had like so many friends and people around me, like my dad and all my friends, they like loved Anthony Bourdain and like watched all this stuff. Personally, like, I saw a few episodes and stuff here, but like I knew his impact, and like everybody wanted his job. Like, he was traveling the world trying different foods.
Yeah, he's a great chef too.
Yeah, and like he's a white person, and like he's representing so many, not representing, but like experiencing different cultures and showing like, oh, it's cool to like share different cultures.
Yeah, he was always a great like travel blogger, and his like critique on food was awesome. I remember like No Reservations, which is one of his shows. He did an episode on Turkey, and he covered it better than anybody that I've ever seen that's done it before that. And it was just like in such a beautiful way. Really got down to like the culture. Really explored the food. He wasn't afraid to try anything, and like he kind of like he's very like blunt with it and very honest. And so it was always awesome to see him doing all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's crazy. Like, you wouldn't think he did that in France, and I think the person that he was with said that they didn't see it coming at all. So. It's very sad. What about Kate Spade?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm like obsessed with success stories, and so I would listen to her story on how I built this 3 different times. And honestly, like, her whole story of how she built the company from scratch, and like from having absolutely nothing and working on a company that seemed dead for like 6-7 years, and kind of having that breakthrough, and having even her idea of how she wanted her bags to be. She had like a very unique style and kind of wanted to do something different. And it wasn't until like after I really heard her story where I started to like respect her brand and respect what it was, that I even went out and was like looking to purchase one myself. But she ended up selling the company for like $6 billion or something like that. But it was, she built a company up from the ground with the help of her husband, of course. And I think it's very sad that I had literally just listened to her story like maybe 3 months ago again.
I would see like her bags everywhere, or like her clothes everywhere. Like, I would see the name.
It's like a fashion icon staple.
Yeah, and I would like see it everywhere. Like, that was like one of the few brands like I knew.
I mean, that just goes to show like it doesn't matter about the way that we everybody measures success in such a different way, and it's never about the money and the fame and everything. Like, you never know who's really going through something.
Right. And I think her husband came out with a statement because a lot of people were saying, you know, oh, like, you need to get help when you have issues and this and that. And, you know, the husband came out and he's like, I don't know where you guys are getting this information from, but she's been trying to get help for 5 years. It's just that she's had a really hard struggle with it regardless, even with getting help. And I think that really emphasizes on, you know, one, how depression affects us all differently, and how mental health is really important for all of us. And even, I say this to just people generally, that even if you're feeling some type of way, you don't even think you need therapy, it's good to just talk to somebody, whether you use your friend as a therapist or you actually go to a therapist and you kind of work through your issues. It is a lot more helpful. And a lot of times in our culture, parents will say like, oh yeah, you just need to pray more, or like, you know, you just need to like not worry about that, just like stop being sad, stop being depressed. But that goes when the man jumped off the building in Mecca. Like, you can be in the holiest city in the world for Muslims and still feel depressed. Like, that doesn't take away from the level of, I think that really speaks to how mental health affects us. And we can't just wash it away, brush it away. It truly affects us all differently. And
when these things happen, I think it's great that everybody gives out the suicide prevention hotline and everything like that. And we'll actually link it in the description too. But you know, it shouldn't have to come to that point where like you're finally being an advocate for like checking up on your friends and family. I think you should be doing that regardless,
most definitely. I think that it's really important that, you know, even if you see your friends that aren't, you know, maybe doing the best, you know that your friends are going through something, even if they're not, genuinely you should be checking in on the people that you care about, because they could be going through anything. And with that, if anybody listening has anything that they want to talk about, that they feel like they've had suicidal thoughts or they have depression, not only check out the suicide prevention hotline below, but you can hit us up personally and we'll talk to you. Definitely hit up your friends and your family if you need to. But just know that we are also here,
and we'd love to, you know, give you whatever we can in response to further help out other people via this podcast, because that would be really great.
Right.
If, you know, we had like previously somebody was having an issue with like a relationship and they didn't know how to approach it the right way, and we kind of gave like, you know, our insight on what we thought you know might be a good approach, and now it's working out. So you know, like, we're always here to talk about it.
Right. So even if you want to have your story kind of help others, you can bring it onto the podcast. If not, you can hit us up privately. My DMs are open. Feel free to hit me up.
Any of us, I think. Thank you for that. So I guess I want to tell you guys this story that happened to us 2 days ago. So it was like, we were coming back from Virginia, me and a few friends, and so it was almost time for sahur, which is when we start our fast
in the morning, right?
In the morning,
like 4
yeah. So it was like you know 2 a.m. and so we stopped by. We were like on the way. We're like, all right, let's just go to Denny's, and it was kind of like in this weird area, and we get in there, and it's like 8 of us guys, and we walk in and there's like some people like giving us looks and stuff, and then we go and sit down. We're like, you know, it's whatever about it, and then these people start fighting behind us, and we're like, oh, what's going on, whatever. And then this guy, this black guy, he was like, they're saying racist stuff about you guys, and we were like, oh, what? Like, that's about us? What's going on? Like, we're just over here chilling, and we're like, hey, it's cool, man, don't worry about it, like, it's fine. And he was like, no, they're making like 7-Eleven jokes, this and that. I was like, all right, well, okay, 7-Eleven jokes are like so old, whatever, it doesn't matter. And then they keep going. Now there's like, the whole restaurant is like getting involved in this fight over us, and we're all the way like on our own table, like just having a good time.
And you guys don't know what's going on. Well, you know what's going on, but like,
but like we're like,
whatever. You're not
like,
worried.
we don't really like, it's whatever. Like, you hear stuff like that sometimes. It's like, also there's 8 of us guys, and there's like 2 of these guys that were like, you know, these rednecks were like fat, and it was 2 of them, and it's like, we're not worried about any sort of like, we're not trying to get physical or anything. Like, they were like, I actually turned around, I was like, hey, it's all good, man, we forgive you, we love you, no worries, don't worry about it. And they kept going for some reason. Other people got involved, and the waitress comes over. She's like, how are you guys doing today? I'm like, causing a problem clearly. Like, and she was like, oh no, like, it's fine, sorry, don't worry about it, or whatever. I was like, Okay, well, we ended up like, we're just enjoying our meal, whatever. They're still fighting, and then eventually people leave. Another guy comes in, somebody that we knew, and he was just passing by, and we were like, oh, how you doing? Like, he's like, oh, I was just trying to catch a meal here. It was like, he's like a friend of ours.
Oh, was he coming to meet up with you guys?
No, he wasn't
okay,
coming. It just happened to be he was there. So we were like, oh, you can join us. So he came over, he joined us, and he got his food a little bit later, but he just like went through it, like ran through like a train, and then he finished like my food too, and then he just left. And the lady was like, yeah, so one of the people that were in the restaurant actually ended up paying for you guys, because she was sorry about like what happened. And the funniest part was like, this guy that came in, he didn't know anything that happened previously. He came in, ate his own meal, ate my meal, and left. And he didn't know anything that had happened. And you
didn't pay for it either?
Free meal, yeah, free meal.
Wait, but he left and he didn't pay for his meal either?
No, after she had said that the meal's free.
Okay.
Oh, cool, all right. Just leaves. He has no idea that what happened. But yeah, I mean, the reason I was telling that story is just like, sometimes people feel the need to like always approach something in a confrontational way, when sometimes the best thing that you can do is just be yourselves and ignore what's happening. Because see, he didn't say it to us, he said it under his breath. Somebody else caught him, and it was because he was too afraid to say it out loud.
Right.
And that's the problem that he has with himself, that he can't stand to see like brown people walking into a restaurant that he's eating at. And so he felt the need to say something, and we didn't care at all. We enjoyed ourselves. We were laughing, whatever, while people were fighting over us for no reason. And I told the black gentleman that I was like, yo, we appreciate it, man. Like, you're trying to stand up for us and everything, but like, it's all good. Like, don't worry about it. Don't stress yourself. It's all good. You see us, we're here. Nobody's threatening us. Nobody's causing, nobody's ruining our day. We're fine.
Yeah.
Like, we're having a good time. We actually ruined his day. And just by existing, but by us just being nice and everything like that and having a good time, treating the waitress well, it makes them look stupid, because they're like, oh, that was a stupid comment, and I couldn't even say it out loud because I'm too afraid of what would happen. So I mean, well,
it was brave of that black person to stand up for you guys.
Because I think
sure.
you want to like teach him a lesson, or maybe but
yeah.
I think it's nice.
Yeah, it was very nice of him, but again, like it doesn't always have to be a serious thing and make it a whole like I don't have to write a whole thing on Facebook. Today we were threatened and this and that. Like sometimes it's all good, and people are gonna learn from it, and you have to realize that these people, like those two people, I can tell they grew up in the same town their entire lives, and that's what they're used to, and they're not used to seeing us. But we're used to seeing them though, and we're used to traveling the world. Alhamdulillah, like we're very blessed to do things like that, and so it's our privilege and our responsibility to act appropriately. But for them, it's like you have to be understanding that, okay, they're not comfortable with it. That's a fault of their own or their surroundings, that they were grown up, in a disrespectful manner. Like, that's, you should respect everybody, and that's what it is. But so would you like to introduce our guest we have on today?
Today's guest is Sophia Yeshi. She is a half black, well, actually a quarter black, a quarter white, half Pakistani woman who identifies as queer. So she's a very interesting, unique story. So
let's get to know her and see some of the struggles that she faced growing up and everything like that. So yeah,
Sophia Yeshi.
I peeped your cash not to let you pay. I wrote my number on the receipt as I walked away.
Yeah, that is funny though.
Yeah, but so tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Sophia.
Hi, Sophia.
Hello.
Hi, Sophia.
I'm a graphic designer, illustrator, and a creative from
I just
Baltimore.
saw some of your stuff too. It's really good.
It's crazy.
Thank you.
Awesome. It's insane.
Thanks. Everybody check me out. Well, just a little bit of background about me. So I am mixed. I'm half Pakistani and half black and white. So growing up, I was a lot closer with my black side of the family. So most of my friends are black or people of color. So I don't have a lot of brown friends. And I think it's mostly just because I wasn't raised around, like brown side of my family. So I just naturally gravitated to what I knew.
Okay. What do you mostly get? Like, I would never think that you're half Pakistani at all. What do people usually think that you are?
I get anything really. Like, people think I'm Ethiopian, they think I'm Latina, they think I'm Dominican, just anything. Just very ambiguous. So
what was that like? I mean, growing up with the mix of the cultures.
growing up, I was never really like confused. I always knew that I was mixed. I always knew, you know, where I came from, and my roots. But I didn't have very strong ties. You know, it's interesting because I'm a quarter black and a quarter white, but I can't claim whiteness in the same way that I can claim my blackness. You know, so it's always interesting. Even though they're equal, they don't actually carry the same amount of weight. Yeah. Because I could go somewhere and say I'm black, but I can't go anywhere and say I'm white. Like that just doesn't
even though
make
it's the
sense.
same.
Exactly. It's just very interesting to me. So. I haven't really felt that like pressure to choose that a lot of mixed people talk about. Like they feel like they have to, you know, decide if they're going to be this or that. I've always just tried to be like, I am all things that, you know, whatever I make up is just me. So.
Yeah, I see on like your Instagram and stuff, like you'll rotate between brown girl magic and black girl magic, and it's like you do a very good job of kind of like balancing out, or you know, the way that you identify, you can see very clearly that you will kind of like bounce between because you are all.
Yeah, and it's interesting, you know, I don't always know what to really call myself, and you know, sometimes it depends on if I'm wearing, you know,
BLACKISTANI.
Pakistani.
If I'm with my you know, my Pakistani family, and then you know, I'm kind of like, this is clearly, it kind of just depends.
Wait, so which side, like dad or mom, who's what?
My dad's family is from Pakistan. My dad came here when he was 8.
Okay. And so how do you get along with that side of the family?
So we get along well. When I was born, my dad's family wasn't very accepting because he wasn't married to my mom. So they were kind of like, either marry this woman or we're not really going to have anything to do with the child. So I didn't actually meet anyone in my dad's family until I was 15. Oh, wow. So, really? Yeah, part of that is because my dad was just... I think just kind of hurt by the interaction and then wanted to just protect me. Yeah. So that's part of the reason why I'm not as close, you know, to that side of things.
Right. And so you grew up with primarily which parent?
So I grew up with my mom, but moved in with my dad when I was 11. So then I was raised by my dad. Okay.
So was that kind of a culture shock from being raised with a black and white mom, or black and white mom? Yeah, right? Yeah, okay. And then going over and switching to a culture, and Pakistani culture tends to be a little bit more overbearing than other cultures.
She's nodding.
Yes, it was definitely, and I'll say it was a cultural shock because my mom was very loose and just kind of let me do like whatever I wanted, and then my dad was very strict, like, and he tried really hard to kind of like keep, you know, me in, but since I'd already been exposed to the outside world, I was like, no, like he was like, no nail polish, no makeup, you know, lip gloss, none of that. So he tried very hard, and he would like he wouldn't let me wear certain clothes. He would take my clothes, and so. Yeah. So
you went in, you said you moved in when you were 11. So how did you get along with that side of the family if you hadn't seen them for so long?
Well, I didn't meet them until I was 15. So that was my first introduction. Like, I was around my dad, but I wasn't around anyone else in his family.
Did you ever ask about that?
Yeah, I did. I think it took a while, actually, for me to find out, like, what actually had happened. I just knew they weren't around. Like, I didn't really know why or like what had happened. And then when I got a little older, he told me, and I started like meeting his family, and they were all very nice. And you know, I think that when I was born, it was a very troubling time in their lives, and they just probably didn't have the capacity to really, you know, to just be receptive. But I'm sure they regret that, and like we have a relationship now, and they're very nice and they're very open.
Do you have cousins like your age or anything?
Yeah.
Okay, and how are they towards you?
They're pretty accepting. I think it's interesting. They just look at me like I'm an American. They're not, so they don't have the same like standards that they would have for like.
Oh, for each other.
Yeah, like they're not like, oh, you know, they know Sophia grew up in, you know, in a very American like way, in a very American culture. Mm-hmm. So I don't think they look at me, you know, like they do my other family.
And with that, does they treat you slightly differently? Do they do it in a way that bothers you at all, or is it very like in an understandable type of way?
It's pretty, yeah, they're pretty open. They're pretty receptive. I'm kind of, you know, I'm like pretty much unapologetically like me. And, you know, obviously I'm like respectful around family, but there's only so much that I'm gonna like hold back. And, you know, I'm myself, and they they put up with it. So
when you were involved with the Black community when you were younger, did you receive any backlash for being like half Pakistani at all?
Not Not really. I mean, when I first, like, I changed schools, like, the middle of the school year in, like, 2nd grade, and I got a little bit of, like, teasing and stuff like that. And other than that, actually, I found that the Black community was very, very accepting, whereas I found that, like, the Pakistani community is very exclusionary a lot of the time, and they're not used to seeing mixed Pakistani people, so they didn't know what to do with me or what to make of me. Yeah. And because I'm not Muslim, I don't speak Urdu, they weren't, like, as open to me. Even when I tried to make brown friends, I just kind of felt like we didn't have a lot to connect on, so it was just hard.
Yeah, I would think that in the Black community, it would be cool to be mixed with the Pakistani. In the Pakistani community, it would not be cool.
Yeah.
You know, because any Black friends that I have, they always, like, you know, comment on mixed couples, especially them being foreign. They love, for some reason, they love that. And whereas in the Pakistani community or Desi community in general, there's, like, a lot of, like, under the breath racism and so I don't know. Did you face any sort of, like, racism from either community, especially getting older?
I wouldn't say I faced, like, any racism, but I think also it's important to look at you know, Black culture because of, like, the one drop rule in America and, you know, slavery. So if you were one drop Black, then you were Black. So that's it. Just, you know, Black people are just generally very accepting of mixed people because of that. You know, if you claim and accept your Blackness, then they're gonna claim and accept you as well. That's really been my experience. Like, I thought about it, I was like, no one really ever said to me, like, you're not Black, but I've definitely had people say to me, you're not actually Pakistani.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. That's understandable. What religion did you grow up practicing, or kind of direction towards?
Well, that's interesting too. I didn't really grow up with any religion. I had a lot of religions around me. My grandmother was Baptist. My mom was, like, practicing Buddhism. Then I had my dad, who's not really a practicing Muslim, but that's why he was raised. And then I had, like, my grandfather was agnostic. So it was just, like, always this constant swirl of religions around me. So I just really didn't go with any of them and just tried to find my own path. So.
Did you ever explore any of those, or, like, have a personal battle with them?
Yeah, I went to church a lot with my grandmother and you know, my mom's side of the family. They would try to make me go to church all the time, and I think I was asking so many questions, and it was very challenging for me to understand, like, the concept of, I mean, to be honest, God, and I just didn't resonate with me. It didn't make me feel whole. So I just didn't find that I needed it in my personal life. So
adding to your uniqueness, you also have another unique aspect that you actually identify as queer.
Yes.
Talk about that a little bit.
Okay, well, I'm queer. I have a girlfriend.
Is that different than just gay?
Well, it really it's up to you to how you define it. I mean, queer doesn't have to mean that you necessarily only date one gender. It's a little bit more open. It's kind of a broader term.
Okay.
Whereas lesbian implies that you date women. Gay implies it's just...
That's not bi either?
It's like an open-ended term that you don't like follow.
It's just kind of like an umbrella term. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that you don't follow by, like, it's not like the standards of society. It's like it's kind of like outside of it. Okay.
Yes.
And so when did you, I guess, come out of the closet?
Or start to realize it and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think I've known for a while, and I think I explored this term of bisexual for a long time until I finally was like, that's not it.
Was it, like, scary at first, or, like, did you feel, like, very different or anything?
Actually, my mom is gay, so I didn't say that. But if anything, I didn't want people to think that it was, like, because of her. Which is strange, because no one would ever think you were straight because your parents are straight, but like, that was always, you know, kind of in my head. And I think my first time realizing it was probably when I was like 8 or 9, so it's been a while.
Wait,
as far as
go ahead.
I was gonna say, as far as, like, the whole coming out thing, like, I don't really think I ever I mean, I came out to, like, my dad, but other than that, there was never like, oh, I'm coming out. It was just, you know, this is me, and if you know, you know, and if you don't, that's
how'd your
fine
dad
too.
take it?
He was fine with it.
Really?
Yeah, he's pretty open. So.
Oh, that's cool.
And his side of the family?
Well, they...
Or do they not know?
Some of my family knows. I think the other ones know, and we just don't talk about it.
Okay.
Like my mom's side, they know. They probably, I don't think they care. My dad's side, like some of my cousins who live here, I'm like 100% sure that they know. We just don't talk about it. So.
Oh. Do you have any inspiration when it comes to your art or people who inspire you artistically?
Yeah, inspiration. I actually find inspiration in everything. I wouldn't say that there's like one artist that I look to. I get inspired a lot by women. Like a lot of my work is of women, and I just I just really want to represent and show like women of color, especially. Like that's my ultimate goal. Create more work that can inspire and ultimately like, you know, focus on like body positivity and self-love and acceptance and things like that. Those are messages that I like really want to push. But I have to push myself to make that art. So that's where I'm going next. Do you involved with that with the LGBTQ community? Yeah, definitely. Okay. Definitely. It's definitely important like to represent for you know, queer women of color, you know, and I want to also represent like my Pakistani side more in my art. I just don't always know how, and I don't want it to feel like I'm doing it, you know, just because. Yeah, I want it to feel like it's me and it's authentic, and but I don't want to leave it out, you know, because it is a part of me. But I don't always know how to do that.
Well, what parts of it do you of both cultures do you like?
What parts do I like?
Yeah.
Like what resonates most with you from both cultures?
You know, I really, really love like dressing up and wearing like, you know, shalwar kameez and like getting like my mehndi done and all that. Like I love that. I love that the more you put on, the better. You know, you're supposed to wear 45 bangles and like
you can be extra with it.
Yeah, it's very fun, and yeah, I love that.
And you have a very like you are very like into fashion. You're kind of like a fashionista. Thanks. And you're always dressed very well and in bright colors. Yeah,
so that's why I love I love putting all of that on, and the food.
Really? What's your favorite food?
I'm very basic. I eat chicken tikka masala like 4 times a week.
Wait, that's lit though. That's not basic.
What about the spice level?
Thing, like medium spicy. Okay. I don't really like spicy food.
That's pretty good though.
Yeah.
Did you ever get to explore language?
Not really, because like I said, my dad came here when he was pretty young. So the only thing he ever taught me was how to say my name in Urdu.
Which is just like my name.
Metanam, hey Sophie, right? That's
yeah.
That's literally the only thing I know how to say.
What was the most challenging part of all of your experiences growing up?
The most challenging part, my childhood was very tumultuous, as you can imagine.
What does that word mean?
Tumultuous means like rough and kind of crazy. So as you can imagine, like living, you know, with one parent and then moving with a different parent is very challenging and very stressful. So it's just constant like chaos and rearranging and then also this kind of theme of like not being accepted and, you know, this whole with my dad's family of rejection. And so it was just a lot. But I think I'm at a place now where I've had to, because of the way I grew up, I'm very independent and, you know, I can do things for myself and I don't really need anyone to do things for me. And so I'm like, I'm all right.
Yeah, you seem very like positive. I mean, at least the way that we see you right now. So it's hard to imagine like, you know, you having to figure all of this out, but you made it. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's currently Pride Month, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do on during Pride Month?
What do you do?
Yeah, what do you
like you specifically?
Oh, me. I was like, what do you do?
Or in general too.
I mean, in general too, like, cause yeah, I'm not familiar with it at all. Besides knowing that it is Pride Month.
So Pride Month is really just a celebration of all things, you know, LGBTQ. It is fun, you know. Pride Parade is just everyone, you know, having fun and on a parade and celebrating just, you know, just being queer. Like it's so much fun. And it's really amazing just to be in a space where you know that you're surrounded by like-minded people. Just, you know, the comfort, like, you know, when you're around people that you don't know at all, like, and you, hold on, let me just think about how I want to say that.
it's like Comic-Con, like
Yeah, like you're around
everybody
like
is-
your people, like those
like
are your
nerds,
folks.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you know how it feels to just be around people
Yeah.
that are like you and you just feel comfortable. Like you can be unapologetically yourself.
Right.
So I can kind of compare that by saying like, I know when I go to I don't really go to clubs, but there are certain times when I've like gone to clubs and I don't like clubs. Why? Because I get hit on by guys, because, you know, the culture just doesn't feel right to me. But when you go to certain places where, you know, like, if I go to a queer club, I know that I feel comfortable there. I know that I'm not going to get hit on most likely in the same way. I know that me and my girlfriend can feel comfortable holding hands and dancing, and that I'm not going to get these weird looks. You know what I mean? So it's just like, it feels really good to me to be in a place where other people are like me. That's the biggest reason why I enjoy Pride.
Do you see any problems within that society, in the LGBTQ society, that you feel like, you know, this could be bad for our community?
Yes, there are tons of. I don't personally think that I am you know, like a spokesperson.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
For your own experiences. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to like think about what I think is really important. I would say that people need to get a lot better with their understanding of, I think, trans issues, and also in general about like gender nonconforming people, and pronouns. You know, we're all learning about pronouns. We're all learning, you know, what's acceptable and what's becoming acceptable. And I know there's a lot of resistance, especially from older people who have told me like, well, I don't feel like I should have to do this or do that. And I'm like telling them like, listen, we've had to learn. You have to learn as well. It's really not taking anything out of your day to change someone's pronoun to say they, or not assume someone's gender. I know it's weird at first.
It's awkward, yeah.
It can be a little bit awkward, but you never know if that person that you're addressing as she or he doesn't identify that way. And yes, they can correct you, but I mean, you guys know, like, there are a lot of spaces where people probably don't feel comfortable doing that. So I'm not perfect, but I'm just saying it's something that, like, I try to actively make sure that I'm thinking about it. Or like my girlfriend will tell me like, don't call the waitress like she or ma'am or whatever. And I'm like, why? But then she said, well, I've had people ask me not to do that. So it's just something to think about.
That's what's like hard for me to wrap my head around, maybe, because it's like you're trying to be polite,
right?
But then it's like, but should I be conscious of, like, you know, could they be identify as something else? And that's always like hard for, I guess, the outsiders that aren't familiar with, you know, the pronouns and everything like that. Like, how should we just, like, you know, what do we say to just
what can we do as people who are from the outside to be more like understanding and accepting?
So generally, I found that people don't mind if you ask them what their pronouns are. There may be some people who get offended because they're like, of course I'm a woman, but you know, you can just say, well, I just want to make sure that I'm respecting you. Or just use people's names. If you don't know, just call them their name.
Right.
That's
maybe
really
around where you live too, because if you like ask somebody what their pronoun is where I live, they'd be like, yeah, we don't do that around here. Like, literally, that's, you know, it's very conservative, and like they would mind it if you asked.
That's what I'm saying. There are some people who are going to, but like that's what I'm saying. Like, don't like pull your hair out over it. But I'm just saying, like, I try to be. I'm learning. Like, there's still things that I don't do great, but I'm learning. And like every time I have some interaction, and you know, I assumed someone's whatever, and it just teaches me like, okay, remember, like, just keep working on it. You know what I mean?
I think for the most part, like, at least in my experience, like, I don't deal with somebody who has corrected me of like a pronoun. So then, you know, it also depends on like how many people are there that you would have to sort of be conscious of that for, or do you kind of like use your own judgment?
I guess it's in the area too, right?
Yeah.
Because like in Baltimore, it's like a very LGBTQ heavy community, especially in Mount Vernon. Is that true?
Well, your sexuality doesn't really have to do anything with how you identify, like your gender. Those aren't.
Explain that.
You know what I mean? So I'm queer, but I use she, her pronouns. I'm you could be straight or whatever. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hold on.
Well, you're going somewhere with that. You could be straight, but you can be any other gender, right? Like,
yeah. So your sexuality doesn't have anything to do with the gender that you identify with. Those two are completely different.
So you could be a straight man but still identify as she?
Wait.
But then you're not a man.
So you're
just straight. Remember,
Yeah.
we're talking about your sexuality.
Straight.
Like you could be a straight girl, right?
straight woman.
Straight woman.
We're getting a little too deep into it. But all I'm saying is, like, just because Mount Vernon has a lot of queer people doesn't have anything to do with how people identify as far as like their gender.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And this isn't, I wasn't trying to like harp on this topic either. I was just saying like that is something to like remember.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that we
Yeah.
did, because it is confusing, as we
Yeah.
have just
It is
figured
confusing.
out. So.
Yeah, that's my point. Like, it's confusing. Like, I don't have it figured out.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just know that that's something that people need more awareness about in general. Like, they just need to know that you can't always assume people's gender, that, you know, it's usually okay to ask. If you're not sure, then just ask, because people will typically respect you if you do, unless you know, have people who are very conservative and use your judgment.
Yeah. People see me from the back of the head, and sometimes they're like, "Excuse me, ma'am, like, where's the bathroom?" But I'll just turn around and be like, "Oh, right there," and they're like, "Oh." But, hey, it's all
Don't
good.
assume.
It's all good.
See?
No, I think it's funny. It's all good. Being Pakistani and Muslim, we often talk a lot about issues that we have within our own community, because it's like, you know, obviously there is people from the outside that affect us a lot. But it's like, what can we do to better ourselves and present ourselves better? I definitely know that, you know, like, not everybody in the LGBTQ community is on the same page when it comes to like every single issue and what they think about those. Because I know, like, when Caitlyn Jenner came on Ellen, and she was saying, like, you know, gay marriage, she was like not for it, and that was kind of a weird thing for everybody to understand, because it's like, wait, like, you've been singled out, and that's not cool for you to, like, you know, say that this person can't live their lives this way when you're choosing to do something that a lot of people wouldn't be accepting of too.
Well, there are definitely other issues. I mean, I would say one of the biggest issues is that trans women, especially trans women of color, black trans women, sex workers, are getting murdered at very, very high rates. Like, every day, really, I'm seeing, you know, just how, you know, black people in general are getting murdered by the police. It is affecting trans women very heavily, because there is so much ignorance, hatred, and violence in our society that, you know, and in turn a lot of like repressed stuff, you know, I'm sure. So there's questions, like, I remember on the radio 92Q, they were asking, like, what would you do if someone you were seeing or dating, you know, lied to you about their gender and they were really trans? And then people were like, I would murder them on the radio, like, jokingly.
Wow. But
But this is on the radio, and I'm like, that's perpetuating literally violence. Like, that's someone who could meet someone and they be trans and not know, which they're not tricking you. They don't know. People don't have to tell you. And then they get murdered. Like, that's how that happens. So I don't think, I was very turned off by hearing that on the radio.
So as just because I'm ignorant to this, to what point do you think that someone doesn't have to tell someone when it's in a personal relationship, when two people are like wanting to get into an intimate relationship? Is there a point at all that somebody who is trans that does have to kind of notify that person?
I mean, you definitely should tell someone if you're getting into a relationship with them, because that's just like, you know, something that they should know, just like you would tell your partner if you have kids. Like, imagine if you start dating someone and then 2 months later you're like, you have kids? Where the hell your kids been?
Right.
Like, you know, it's something important. But I'm saying, like, you don't have to say on the first date.
yeah,
As soon as you meet someone, hi, I'm so-and-so and I'm trans. Like, that's not the kind of discretion that needs to happen, because, you know, you shouldn't assume that someone would dislike you just because of the way that you were born. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Definitely, like I said, I mean, I'm not the one who gets to decide, but I would, if, you know, in my opinion, that if you were to date someone, then, you know, that would be the time to let them know.
I don't know, when do you bring that up? Like, it's
up to that
definitely
person.
very hard. Yeah.
But if you look at it, the other side is the fear of getting murdered. So it's like, let me wait until I feel them out to see if they're going to even be receptive to that. You know, maybe they'll
maybe
say
like
something.
throw hints or something in some way,
Or like bringing up like taboo topics such as like being transgender or things about the
not even that,
community.
like, just, you know, talking about whatever and like seeing their reaction to things.
Yeah.
If they're like overly masculine or something like that, I don't know.
Right,
Hateful,
like seeing,
Maybe
like, is
figure
this
it out.
person who I'd even want to tell that to?
Yeah.
Right.
And if not, well, it's not going to happen anyway. So I didn't need to open myself up to the possibility of violence. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? So then those comments where people say, well, if they didn't tell me, and it's like, then I would kill them. Well, that's why you would have, maybe you would have still did that if they did tell you. So.
Right.
Do you know about the trans community in Pakistan by any chance?
I know a little bit about it, but not too much.
Yeah, we have like a lot
Pretty
of
big.
it's transgender, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Transgender community in there, like one of the biggest in the world. But they actually like on their forums and stuff like that. Now they're actually putting that as one of the options, so you could be man, woman, or
They have like a whole system,
Yeah.
like of how the transgender like
there's like a
community
school
is.
of them.
Yeah,
now too.
like
There's
you're
like separate schooling.
you're supposed to have like a
There's
mentor.
separate schooling?
There's separate schooling. Also, the way that a lot of them, the way that they survive is through entertainment. So it's a lot less respectable than how we have it and consider drag here. Like, you know, we look at drag as a form of art in, you know, America. More so over there, it's like solely entertainment but not respected.
Like a circus.
Almost. But like, for example, like weddings and stuff, they'll have them.
They call them up.
They'll call them out to come and perform for the wedding.
Really?
And then, you know, kind of go, and that's kind of their thing. There's also a documentary that we all watched together called
How Gay is Pakistan?
How Gay is Pakistan. And they had these underground communities where they were hidden, and like transgender people and people who were gay would kind of congregate, but they were all in secrecy.
Yeah, you should check that stuff out because
It was very
I
interesting.
definitely will.
yeah. Do you have any plans of traveling anywhere?
Traveling anywhere? Yeah, I'm actually going to South Africa at the end of the year for 2 weeks.
Ooh.
There is a group in Baltimore called Brioxy, also the owners of Dovecote Cafe, if you've ever been there. It's it's actually a queer black-owned coffee shop in Reservoir Hill. And the owners are really amazing in building a network of a network of you know, people of color, specifically black people, you know, to connect and network with. And so one of the owners has Brioxy. It's like a program for like innovators of color, I guess.
Okay.
And so they are taking about 30 or so people to South Africa. So I am so excited. I can't wait.
So what are you going to be doing there?
Just being there. I mean,
Okay.
they have some activities, some like dinners and stuff planned, but for the most part, it's pretty open. We get to explore. We'll be in Johannesburg.
Oh, nice.
I've never actually traveled outside of the country outside of like some random
Really?
cruises. So this will be unless I like go to somewhere, you know, before the end of the year. But
Would you ever go to Pakistan?
I knew that was coming. That's why when you said, "Or you have any plans to travel?" I was like, "Where?" I think I would. I'm not ready yet because I think it would be a big culture shock for me.
Oh yeah, it's a culture shock for
us.
Yeah, exactly. Because like especially with me, like I have to go like with family.
Yeah,
Most
for
def.
sure.
And not speak to anyone because I wouldn't want to do something wrong. But
But do you feel
No,
like
there's wild people over there. Trust me.
no,
You'll be
we
fine.
met like my so my cousin got married over the summer, and her cousins came from Pakistan, and I was like, wait, they're more chill than any of my cousins here.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean,
yeah.
even religion-wise, like people over there, are, like
Yeah, which isn't
not
that interesting?
really following.
yeah.
It's interesting how like a lot of people will come here and maybe like in the culture in like the 70s or whatever when they came here in Pakistan was like super strict, and then
Yeah, I think they
I
have
think
to like
it's also
establish
clinging
it
on
too.
to what they have as well. Because when you're surrounded by a society that has none of that, whereas when you're a society that only
Yeah.
has that, then you try to hold on to pieces of your identity the best that you can.
and that just turns into like super like just like you said, like fiercely protecting what you know,
Right.
And whereas like in Pakistan, like it's not even really as strict, or some people maybe, but
Right.
like generally,
Like
more
in cities
casual.
and stuff, it's
Yeah.
casual.
Yeah.
It's and I mean, you have like the mosque at like every corner, and
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
the
It's
like-
azan goes off.
It's
and
much
so
easier
like,
too.
yeah.
Like it's more chill and
But
like,
here, when you
easier.
don't have those
Yeah.
things, it's like you have to establish it so
Yeah.
that
Right.
you know, like, because there you're not afraid of losing it.
Yeah.
It's always there,
Right.
like Amber was saying. But here it's
Right.
like, hey, we gotta establish something, and we gotta like, especially the people that come here first, they're like, all right, we have to set a good example so that the kids will follow afterwards. But there's like,
Right.
it's around you all the time, and they're like, there's a lot of people that that want to do things that aren't available to them, like, you know, getting alcohol, or like, you know, how we're talking about like the trans community, hidden, even gay community, all of that is like so hidden because it's like they want something that is not the norm. And so when they come here and everything is available to you, then that's when you can be like, okay, well, I have the option of having whatever, but I don't need it. And that's when you can become more religious. Whereas there, it's like, you don't know what's out there, and you're just like craving that. Maybe that's what it
a lot
be.
of it, like for example, like my family's from like the village, and theirs are more from the city, and so I'm like 8 hours from the city. And for us, a lot of our religion is very deeply intertwined with culture in itself. So instead of just having it be like Muslim and like, oh, we're doing these things because we're Muslim, it's like, oh, it's the identity of being from Pakistan and the rituals that they're used to doing. So things that you don't have to do, they're like, for example, like you don't have to wear shalwar kameez to be a Muslim, but over there to wear something that's not exactly that but still covering is still like, well, why are you wearing that? But then again, they're from the city, and that's the complete opposite.
Do you know where you were seeing the cousins that came from over there?
Where they live?
Where they're from in there? Yeah.
I think they live in Karachi.
Oh, okay.
That's where he's from.
Yeah, that's where my dad's from.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, when they came, they were just telling us about the culture, which was even a shock to my other cousins because they don't live there. They visited, but they were like, the one guy, he gets food poisoning because he eats just anything off the street. He just like trash from the street. And she's a photographer, and that's what she does for a living, and it's all cool except like you just go and travel with people who have guns whenever you need to go anywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, wow.
And you're an artist, so like you would actually really appreciate like the art scene over there, because people are very appreciative of art. We have NCA, which is National College of Arts, and it's really like renowned on that side of the world. So yeah, I mean, if you'd ever be interested in it, like you should definitely at some point check out that part, because it's like you never know what you could kind of find over there.
Similarly, have you ever been into like Bollywood? No,
not really.
Okay.
I've seen a few things, and there's still definitely a lot of those issues, like I said, about colorism and little racism sprinkled in here and there, and some kind of misogynistic. But I can't write the whole thing off. I just haven't watched much of it. Like
we just watched, me and Frost's sister just recently went to go watch Veer the Wedding, and not only did they like have the topic of they had people in there who were gay, but they didn't make it a big deal. They didn't talk about it. He was just gay, and it was just there, which was an interesting concept for Bollywood movies, because they don't really do that. They had openly like the party scene and this and that. Like it was like, I feel like Bollywood is making a step in the direction towards kind of becoming more open, to the point where Pakistan banned it.
Really?
Yeah.
We'll ban anything. You're just like close to a kiss scene, like nope.
Yeah, literally they remove kissing scenes.
I know that in Saudi Arabia they lifted their ban on movies, and then the first movie that they were going to allow to play was Black Panther. But I wonder what that edited movie looks like, though.
Right.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you would like to tell us about, talk about, or anything like that? We're getting close to wrapping up, but
okay. I was just thinking about the cultural differences between like my Black family and like my Pakistani family. And I think the biggest thing that I've noticed is when I'm around my Pakistani family, everyone has to put on this face and this facade. Like, you're not really allowed to be yourself around your family. So when I go around my family, I know that I'm going to talk about, school, my career. That's kind of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right. It's like they're not going to be, maybe they're asking me when I'm getting married because they don't know that I have a girlfriend. But like, we're not going to really get to the surface. Yeah. I mean, past the surface of issues. And
is that uncomfortable for you?
A little bit. And I also noticed that like kind of because I'm an outsider, like my aunt who's like, I can't dance because my husband's not here. And I'm thinking like, you have 3 kids.
Right.
Like, but you can't, I can't like wrap my head around it because I wasn't raised in that culture. And to me, it feels very restrictive. And I think that's a lot of what it was based off of is, this idea of taking away temptation. And that's right.
Has that created like, obviously unintentional, but judgment that you have towards Pakistani people that you meet, or, when you see them, are you ever like, dang, like, I feel bad for for them? Or?
I try not to feel that way because, you know, everybody is different. And just like a lot of people look at arranged marriages like they're terrible and they're this and they're that. And I see that, you know, they're not always bad. Like, they're not the worst thing in the world all the time. And especially now, like, women have more of a say. And I also have to look at it like that is the culture, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not there, so I can look from the outside looking in and say, oh, this is terrible and this is that. Just like people look at Muslim women that wear hijab and they think, oh, they're oppressed or whatever. But and I used to think like that. But now I'm like, I can't view everything with an American lens because people in the culture don't always feel that way. Yes, there are things that are oppressive and restrictive. But again, to everyone, it's not always like that. You know, it's just what you know. Right? Yeah. Would you guys agree?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, you know, just as you grow older and you see how everybody sort of individually makes their decisions and seeing, you know, for us at least, like seeing the Pakistani perspective and the American perspective, you get why both sides feel like, you know, that there are either issues that they have within their own communities, issues that they have with other communities, and things that, you know, that they're completely okay with and that other societies tell them that is not okay, like how you're mentioning hijab, like similarly with modesty. And that's something where it's like sometimes people within a sort of modest culture or, you know, modest family, whatever, or themselves when they're modest, will view something outside of that as like, okay, well, that's uncomfortable for me, right? And it's not just about like religion or anything. It's just like, you know what, if I'm not modest, that's uncomfortable for me. Yeah. The same way that, you know, somebody that does not cover up as much would be like, you know what, covering up that much would be uncomfortable for me. So you have to see it on both ends. But it's about, you know, obviously I think you've grown to definitely understand both perspectives and you had to live through it. You didn't really have a choice. But for us, we can only do as much as like understanding and having these conversations like we're having right now too, because, you know, I was ignorant to a lot of the things that you've mentioned on this podcast. And so it just helps to have these conversations. I think.
Absolutely.
That's what it takes. Actually,
I do want to bring this up. So a huge issue for me, and one of the reasons why I don't have a lot of brown friends is, and you know, I don't even know if you guys do this, but I am not okay with non-black people saying the N-word. And I was at the club last night. I was in DC for Pride, and, you know, Drake's Nice for What came on, and he says N-word in the song, and there's a girl, she starts singing along, and she says it, and she looked white to me, and my girlfriend said, that girl was singing along, so I went up to her, and I said, hi, are you white? And she said, no, I'm Indian. And I said, why are you saying the N-word? She was like, what? I'm like, you're singing along. Why are you know you shouldn't be saying that. And she said, I've dated black guys.
Oh, what a weird.
And I was like, girl, you know you're wrong. And one of her friends pulled her away, but I was just like, I don't know why. I think that a lot of people of color think that because they're a person of color that they share experiences enough that they can, but you know that word was never used against them in that way, so it doesn't belong to you. You know, you don't have the right to say it, and that is a huge issue for me, that people feel entitled to it.
Yeah. I would say that they're like, for us, we, you know, whenever we highlight a lot of stories where, you know, somebody used the N-word where they're not supposed to, and for us we're just like, if you're not black, don't say it. Like, that's for us, it comes as common sense. But I think in the environment that I grew up in versus the environment that, you know, somebody like, let's take the rapper Nav, for example. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but in Toronto, like, he's surrounded by, he said he grew up in like, you know, all black neighborhood and everything. And so for him, he's always taken it that, you know, his black friends would always say it to him. They expect him to say it back. And so that was his norm growing up. And so now looking at it in that way, I'm just like, you know, does he know that that's wrong or that could be considered wrong? And he did end up like, he was like, he doesn't use it in his songs anymore. Yeah. Which like,
but he probably still uses it in person. You know?
Yeah, but that's where I see, like, you know, for those people, how it might be confusing. Again, like, it's not my place to, because I'm not black, so I don't get to decide that. But I also consider, could it be confusing for them? The same way that, you know, we were talking about pronouns and all these things, like, that people just don't know any better, or, you know, they're trying to learn or whatever. But
well, I don't know if I can use the excuse that people just don't know any better. I think that like I said, they feel like they are maybe a part of that group, or that they have faced a similar oppression, and that gives them the right to they have like buy-in and they can say it. But I've actually had some conversations, not about UB, but just with other people, like, hey, you know, you really shouldn't be saying that. And they're like, I grew up in the hood. I'm like, you grew up in Woodlawn. Like, it's, you know what I mean? I get what you're saying. Like, some people grew up in around a lot of black people, but honestly, a lot of the guys who say it, they didn't. They didn't. They say it with their friends, and because they know their friends aren't going to call them on it.
Right.
Well, also, like, see, this is where it gets confusing, because it's like, you know, we have rappers like 6ix9ine and Lil Pump, and they're not black
at all.
either.
I don't listen to them.
But they never get called out.
Yeah.
They've never
They
get
use
called
that
out
word
by
all the time.
anyone, and they're constantly around that culture, even though that doesn't make it right for them to say it. It's definitely wrong, but it's not
confusing for the kids.
For the kids who then are also of Dominican descent and Puerto Rican descent and Mexican descent, who are watching those people and saying those words, and they're not being called out for it.
Well, there's a lot of people who believe that Latino people are black, but they're not all black. Definitely not. But I think that they are. It's easier for them to allow someone from like South America to say it than somebody from like Pakistan or whatever, because you have no connection. Like you're not close at all. You know what I mean? Like that's a definitely a stretch, but. Yeah.
And then we also brought up the Kendrick Lamar conversation.
Yeah. I don't know if you heard about that, where like Kendrick Lamar had a show and he brought up
the
a
white
girl
girl on the stage, and she started singing along. Yeah.
And
What
she was like 14, and
she was 14.
No, I don't think she was 14. I think
That
she was
girl
older
looked
than
like
that.
she was like in her
16
20s.
and 17, I think.
Oh, well, from what I thought she was like younger, but like having a white girl come up there and sing a song that has so many of those words, like that's also like a fault on Kendrick's part to one, like call up a girl who isn't black to come and say that when it's like every other word, or to at least clear that up, because then he basically put her out there to say these things, and now she's getting all this backlash when she should know better. When I don't know, I'm gonna stop.
Yeah.
I just think she should know better. I think
ultimately the responsibility comes on the person,
right?
But
like
I also
Kendrick,
feel like it's Kendrick should also, like, I think he knew what he was doing when he did that.
I mean, he probably did. He probably did that to test her, but like. I just feel like we can't. I just only give people but so much, because there is so much knowledge in the world. You also got to think about like risk management before you say things, especially as a public rapper or public speaker or whatever. Like, how is this going to come off to my audience? So for Nav, he knows his audience is comprised of a lot of different people. A lot of them are black. They know that I'm brown, right? I'm a brown person saying the N-word. Is that problematic? Probably. Like, him and his management company could have figured that out. So to a certain extent, you can't say ignorance, because you have a team of people who have to listen to that song before that gets on your album. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then like we also mentioned that on Kendrick's label, there's Schoolboy Q, who before he starts his shows, he said that he makes all the white people in the crowd say the N-word to clear up the tension. And this is the person that's on the same label. So this is why I say that, I know that at the end of the day, the responsibility falls on the individual.
Right.
But when you have, this, and then you have a highlight like, oh, white girl says the N-word at a Kendrick concert, but why doesn't Kendrick call out Lil Pump and 6ix9ine and all these, and Nav or whoever? Why is it that, that we make fun of these people that are up there that, don't have that social influence and everything, but the big people that are doing it, like Kendrick won't call them out, So I don't know.
I don't know.
Like who is also like isn't that responsibility as well? Like, if you're going to say to this person, shouldn't you say to everyone? I don't know.
I agree, but I think that's also not a reason to give someone a pass. Like,
nobody gets a pass. Nobody
Yeah.
gets a pass. It's just the people who do end up getting confused have like these reasons to be confused, but ultimately it's never a pass.
But there are people that have a pass, like, that are doing it right now. They've by not saying anything, you're giving them a pass. That's what I'm saying. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I I mean, I know
long-
I know what you mean. I know that it's not a cut and dry, a clear cut. Who gets to say it? Who's the decider?
Yeah.
Like, there's not like an official.
Well, it should be. If you're not black, don't say it.
It should
Right.
be, absolutely.
Yeah.
But like,
But
there
with
are
all
always
these
those
factors in,
questions. Yeah, there's
you
always
know.
those questions. Like, well, what if you are raised in the hood and all your friends are black, and that's just part of your lexicon at that point? It's like, you going to tell somebody remove a word that they been saying their whole life, and I mean, yeah, some people are going to tell you no, not
Right,
to say
yeah,
it.
yeah,
So
for sure.
I think it's really learning and navigating, and knowing your audience. Like
Yeah.
I said, if you know that when you're around your friends, they're not going to check you on it. I mean, no one else is really going to know. I can't. I don't want you. I think it's wrong, but I can't stop
Yeah.
you. But I think you gotta, like I said, know your audience.
Yeah.
Like, know who you're around.
I
Well,
think
that-
I think it's also a time change too. Like
Yeah.
we were all definitely a lot more aware of it now, whereas even like 8 years ago, even 10 years ago, like it was more common for almost everybody except for the white person to say that word, and now we're really calling people out for it. And I
Yeah.
think it's good to start calling out people who aren't supposed to be saying it, but it's in that middle part of the time where things are changing and people need to know what they need to know, but not everybody's not there yet.
And I want to say lastly, like, with all the identities that you have, I hope that you always feel like, you know, that all of that is a part of you, and not that, like, you know, sometimes even us, people will say like, okay, like, you're not Pakistani anymore, you're not Muslim anymore because you've done this, right? So for you, I hope that you always hold on to all of your identities, and that you're always, you know, you're like, you know what, like, yeah, there is a Pakistani side to me, there is a black side to me, there's a white side to me, and so I'm going to do this because and I'm going to be proud to be whoever I am. And I think you're already that way, but I hope you never feel like you're, even though that you will get judged and everything like that, I hope you always are, you know, you feel like you're still representing a culture, and you're your own, you know, person. You don't have to like be the spokesperson of it, but
Yeah.
you still are allowed to, like, you know, be proud of who you are, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah. So we actually close off the podcast with a question that we ask every single guest.
Okay.
And SHAH-AMEER, if you want to ask.
If you could describe yourself in any flavor, what flavor would it be and why?
Neapolitan, because Neapolitan ice cream is black, white, and pink, and I'm black, white, and Pakistani, and I feel like that's a pretty good representation of
With the
my
pink?
identity.
With the pink?
I don't know. Maybe pink.
Shy.
Maybe pink is pink is Pakistan, but yeah.
Well, thank you again. We really appreciate you coming on here and having this conversation. I hope you had fun too.
I did.
But yeah, thank you for educating everybody.
Thanks.
And for everybody listening, it's been another week.
Another flavor.
A little less stranger.
We'll talk to you next time.